in urban design. And really the point, I just want to congratulate you. You were invited to this meeting because we would love to see you at Georgia Tech. We have a bias, of course, but really the point of an open house is for you to ask questions and for us to just help you try to find out, is Georgia Tech the right fit for you? And to help answer those questions, I am joined by fellow professor Richard Dagenhart, who will be, and he and I both teach the main studios and some of the main lecture courses. I'm also joined by some recent alumni, including Aishwarya Van Mali, who is now working at a firm mostly as an architect in Chicago, but is still using her urban design degree. We have lots of alumni who do work as urban designers. And I'm looking for Subhash, I don't see Subhash. Subhash, if you're on, please turn on your camera. Subhash Raj is also a recent alum and working as an urban designer in Dallas. And we have Elin Jha, who graduated from the MSUD, but is also now pursuing a PhD at Georgia Tech and helping with the teaching. To help you understand the sort of current life of a Georgia Tech MSUD student, we have Kebar Galita here with us and Evanthia Constantinou. So Kebar has a degree in environmental engineering, and Evanthia has a degree in architecture. So we really do try to have students from a mix of backgrounds in the class. And it's a pretty, we're trying to kind of have you team together, learn from each other, just as you would in an office, but really learn those principles of urban design. So the point of today really is to answer your questions and really encourage you to post questions to the chat. Sometimes you just sort of want to listen a little bit before you get started. And I know some of the most common questions, and I thought we could start with, are everyone gets a little confused about the third semester options. So we can talk about those. The process of giving out those graduate research assistantships and GTA and graduate teaching assistantships, all of the scholarship process, I can speak to that. So I'm going to start. We have lots of topics that we can talk about, and I'm hoping that we'll start getting questions in the chat, or just we will. My guess is be a small enough group that please just you can just turn on your video and ask a question. But I'll go ahead and start with talking about the curriculum and that third semester. So the first and second semester, typically fall and spring, you're taking 3 required courses and typically 1 elective. And everybody's kind of, it's pretty straightforward how that goes. And we've described that, I think, on the website, but let me know if you have questions on that. That third semester, we give you 3, almost 4 options, really. So a lot of students will choose to register in the summer and go on a European study tour that we refer to often as just MAMC, which stands for the old name of Modern Architecture, Modern City. It's a fantastic program. Subhash was on that and can talk about that. You take courses and you visit 5 cities for 2 weeks each, and you do an independent study while you're there. Or you can do your independent study remaining in Atlanta. There aren't very many faculty and there aren't a lot of courses offered in the summer, but that's absolutely a possibility, and take advantage of the incredible resources of the library and our PhD students and our sort of PhD and, really in-depth analytical methods. So the third option, and though, is a lot of students choose to do a summer internship and not register at Georgia Tech in the summer, and then do the independent study and any additional electives in the fall. So those are really your options. We believe it lets people tailor, really focus on your own interests. And, I'll like to ask Richard to, give some comments maybe about the MAMC, because it's really a great program and he's been involved with it for a very long time.
Yeah, it's the advantage of that summer trip is the time that we spend in each city. 2 weeks in London, Paris, New York. What am I forgetting? Paris, and the Netherlands, not just Amsterdam, but in the Netherlands. And by staying in one place for 2 weeks, it's a different experience than many of you who have been to Europe, maybe with your parents or earlier in your undergrad career, where you spend maybe 3 days or 4 days and you go from building to building to building to building. This is one where we're fully immersed in the city, living in the city, traveling on public transit or bicycles, and seeing the buildings and projects, not only the late 19th and early 20th century stuff, but all of the best of the contemporary work in those cities. And there's a lot of it. So 2 weeks is barely enough time to really begin engaged in the city. But what I hear again and again from former students is after 10 years, they go back to one of these cities and they know their way around. They know exactly how to get from one place to another, how to get to the projects that they visited, and so on. So it's a way to learn a city that's not like living in the city, but close to it. And it stays with you. The memory of the place stays with you.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, we had to stop the program during COVID, so some of our recent alumni did not get to go. But and I don't see Subhash here, so hopefully he'll join in soon and he can maybe pass along some of his comments about it. I know I have in the years that I've been teaching it at Georgia Tech, 24, I have never heard a student say, well, that was a waste of time. But everybody really does come back, I think, loving that summer option. But let's switch Aishwarya and then maybe Kebar. Talk about, you guys did independent studies at Georgia Tech. Aishwarya, why don't you tell us a little, just very briefly, what was that like?
So in the summer I did my internship, and in the fall I started doing the independent study, and I feel it was a great opportunity to understand exactly what you like within the boundary of urban design or planning. And it's literally, no one tells you what to do. It's, you have to focus on your own interest. And I think that's the best thing about independent study, because then you know what you want to work in when you graduate from school. So those who are doing independent study, it's a great way to focus on your likes. You'll get to talk to as many faculties. You'll get to use the resources of Georgia Tech and of all the other schools also in Atlanta. You can also go to other colleges, use their library. So it's not like you're limited only to Georgia Tech. During the fall, a lot of faculty are there on campus. You can talk to as many faculty, but you'll have one advisor. Mine was Ellen. So I think my interest of transit oriented, I really started it because of this independent study, and it opened a lot of avenues within my professional life also. So I think that was my overall experience with the research that I did at Georgia Tech.
Bar, what would you add to that?
Yeah, I guess I would just add that during the semester, during school, things can get kind of hectic, busy. You're taking a lot of classes, you're doing, some people are doing part-time jobs or working as teaching assistants. So it can be hard to focus on the stuff that interests you about urban design at times. So, having that independent study over the summer really helps you hone in on something that you want to learn more about, can do research on while you have a little more time during the summer. And yeah, and like Ashwarya said, it can really help you professionally as well. So really good experience.
Yeah. So Elin, you did the MSUD, but then became a PhD student. And we really discovered just how much of a data geek you really are at heart. You're a data scientist and you have all sorts of analytical knowledge of analytical methods. And you actually have advised several of the independent study students. Tell us a little about that.
Well, thank you, Ellen, for all the accomplishment. So yes, I think doing independent study is also a choice worth considering. And I think, yes, MMC is really great, but if you choose to stay, I think the benefit of doing independent study is to, I think, get a little exposure to something that you might not be able to learn from the studio. So I think the program itself is pretty much studio focused, but I think independent study really make you have time to really dive deeper into something that you have a research interest or you might want to prepare your PhD on. So that's really a different experience. So yeah.
Yeah. And I think, the world of data is exploding and is becoming more and more a part of what almost every profession is dealing with in one way or another. And one thing that we have also done that I think is quite unique at Georgia Tech is that in the spring studio, the studio includes
Is that Ellen just frozen or
Uh-oh.
everyone?
I think it's Ellen.
Yeah, maybe.
Ellen's frozen.
Okay.
Okay, so
Well-
what Ellen was talking about, can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Richard.
What Ellen was talking about is the beginning of the spring studio. The Urban Land Institute competition is held for the first 2 weeks. That's a national competition that Georgia Tech has been incredibly lucky, or maybe just good, to be in the finalist. This is the second year in the finalist, and we have 2 or 4 teams participating. So it's a high intensity 2 weeks, and probably learn, I hear students all the time, you learn more in that 2 weeks than you've learned up to that point. And then you're ready to go into the rest of the remainder of the studio, which Ellen's studios in the spring usually have to do with projects in Atlanta or surrounding in suburban locations. She's the the expert of the suburban world, and working with local governments and developers, retrofitting in various ways different projects around the Atlanta area. So that semester is largely focused on how real estate development brings into flows into into urban design practice, and it's very intense, and it's really driven in a lot of ways by the ULI competition, because the ULI competition is basically a real estate proposal put together somewhere in the country that the competition focuses on. The fall semester is usually deals with environmental issues that are complex related to design, particularly water, stormwater, sea level rise, and so on. that has been the result of collaborations with the Georgia Conservancy, an environmental conservation nonprofit that operates all over Georgia. We have at times tried to have a summer studio, and sometimes students have joined with the MArch summer studio that becomes an interdisciplinary complicated thing. We haven't done that in several years. COVID wiped it out completely, and I think it's restarting. I'm not sure this summer, but probably next summer. So there'll be a studio option with MArch during the summer, we hope. And there are also opportunities at times to take a sponsored studio, which may be sponsored by the city or an organization that allows us to sponsor a separate studio that may be interdisciplinary, or a smaller group, smaller studio, like 4 or 5 students. And that sometimes happens during the summer. Let me see, any questions? Or what do you all have to say? It's amazing that if I were in my loft, which I live next door to Ellen, I would be off too, because I assume our internet disappeared, but I'm out of town, so it makes it easy. So what do we need? What do we need to talk about? I haven't thought about recruiting potential students for a long time. So what do you
I have
want
a
to know?
suggestion, Richard.
Living in Atlanta is a big one. Yep, go ahead.
If we do have some alum and current students. If you haven't already shared this, maybe some thoughts you had about the program before entering, and what your perspective is now that you have finished or begun your program. That might be interesting for the prospective students to hear.
I can add on that as a current student. I'm Evanthea. I'm at the second semester of MSUD program, and I can also leave my information to reach back to me in case of any questions, or if you need any suggestions that I may be able to help. What I really like about our program and what I enjoy is that it offers a plethora, a variety of opportunities and directions. We have a variety of courses that cover important aspects of urban design, such as real estate. We also have urban ecological systems course, and these all guide you to a different direction of urban design and different challenges. There is also a huge flexibility in course selection that allows the students to tailor our education into our interests in our career goals. There is a variety of courses to select from. There are urban design policies courses. There are courses that help you enhance your software abilities, such as GIS programs. There are additional courses such as how to make money in architecture, which can enrich your knowledge and extend your perspectives. And also, I really enjoy this flexibility of the summer program, or the opportunity to take an internship during summers, which many other universities don't have this opportunity. They require to take a summer course or do a summer semester. So here in Georgia Tech, we have this opportunity to get the summer in order to do a practical and real world, gain the real world experience. And I can also add in what Richard said about the ULI competition and this semester studios. So the spring semester started with the ULI competition, which is a required competition for us, the MSUD students, but it's the best tool that a student can get in during the MSUD program. In general, the ULI competition is an urban design competition, which includes real estate and the process of development. And we form a group of five people, but there is a limitation to participants to a maximum of 2 people from the same program. So we create a mixture of students from real estate, regional planning, architecture, and that creates a rich blend of different perspectives. So during the ULI, we had a great collaboration. We were sharing opinions and knowledge, and it wasn't just a division of tasks. Everyone contributed with its own knowledge, and we were trying to find the perfect design that responds to every direction and it's feasible and profitable. And yes, we learned so many things in these 2 weeks, that not only from each other, not only from the students, but also from the advisors that we have, the professional and academic advisors, that helped us to limitate our designs to realistic direction. So
Great. Oh, thank you, Evanthia. I think that is super. My apologies, everyone. My internet suddenly went out and twice, so it might do it again. I hate to say so. And thank you for just continuing the conversation. And we've got some questions. And I see, welcome, Subhash. Have you introduced yourself yet?
No, I haven't. Richard and Evanthia, they were explaining stuff, so just waiting for you to also come back. Yeah.
Give us just a 1 second, 1 minute on your experience of doing the summer studio, the European MAMC tour.
Yeah, so I just graduated last August, and I took my summer study abroad program last May to June. It was a 2-month program, and we spent close to about 2 weeks in about 5 cities: New York, Paris, Berlin, Amsterdam, and London. So I would say that's easily one of the best decisions I've taken, to do the summer study abroad program. Each day starts about 9 or 10 a.m. and then it goes about up to 4 to 5 p.m. And each day the professors travel with you throughout the day, and they have a fixed plan. And usually it's about going to museums and talking about the histories of the cities and meeting a lot of people on the way. And in each of these cities, you'll also be visiting some of the famous architectural firms, and you get to see what kind of work that they do. Apart from this, you'll also be asked to maintain a sketch journal and an independent study, and you'll also be made to write essays at the end of the program. So that will be part of your credit submission. What I found the most interesting was whatever I had studied through the fall semester and spring, from Ellen's Theory of Urban Design and Richard's History of Urban Forms, all the learnings that you had gained, you would be able to witness them and experience them in person during a summer program, in all these cities. So that thing was really interesting to me. But apart from that, since it's summer, the sun sets at 9 p.m. So once a class gets done at 4 or 5 p.m., you get a second day to explore the city by yourself. So that was really exciting. So I think if anyone has this chance, one should definitely take that program. So that's what I would say.
Terrific. All right. Let's talk. I do want to talk about the scholarships. I don't know if Shanitra, did you get into that a little bit while I couldn't connect?
No, we haven't talked about that yet.
I know that, it's sad to me that U.S. education is so expensive. It's also really sad to me that we don't have more scholarships and more aid. I really, really wish we did. So there's not enough aid for everyone by any stretch, but we do go through a process and offer scholarships they're not, it's not a scholarship because it's a graduate research assistantship where you have to work 15 hours a week, but in exchange, you get a tuition waiver and a stipend. It's a fantastic deal for the few students who get one. And I wish we can't even really cut it up very much and spread it out very evenly. So a few people get a terrific opportunity, and there's not a lot available for the others. And we'd really just sort of go through, it's a process of making offers and kind of moving down the list. There are also quite a lot of jobs on campus that pay hourly. They do not come with a stipend, which is unfortunate, because that's really, the cost is ridiculous. But there's a lot that you can do as far as, and a lot of students have been really creative and leveraging their talents. For instance, the Georgia Tech Library will hire some students to help other students. And in particular, one of our students got a job with the library of helping the engineers and the computer folks with their visualizations, because that's something we're really good at. And she then leveraged that into more jobs on campus. There are various research labs across the campus, and we've even had we had one student who, just worked at the Georgia Tech cafeteria, and and another student who's worked at the Georgia Tech Police Department, just helping them do filing and stuff. So, it's not the kind of there are opportunities for jobs on campus. And they really don't pay very bad. They pay pretty well, actually. They're not bad. It just, they don't also come with the tuition waiver. So that's an issue. But let's jump to housing. And Nitra has just posted a link, paying for grad school, because that is really important. Nitra, do you have anything else to add on the financial topic?
I would just say exhaust every resource. Look at financial aid, look at different organizations, even some that are not necessarily related to Georgia Tech. You can get even, $200, $300 scholarships can be a large help. I would look at firms and different types of association kind of organizations. All of those can lead you to resources that can help you fund your education. And talk to people, network. I don't like networking because I'm very introverted, but it is very, very helpful and beneficial. You make a lot of, hi Alejandro, you make a lot of connections. You have the opportunity to make a lot of connections when you come to Georgia Tech. And that can lead you to a lot of different opportunities to fund your education and expand your career opportunities. So that's what I would add.
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else have any other suggestions of job type ways to help finance? Sometimes in your home country, there are some scholarships available for students studying abroad if you're international. Any other tips?
Like you said, there are so many job opportunities within campus. I would like to indicate that only for international students, you can work outside Georgia Tech once you're for 8 months within United States. So you need to keep that in mind. But during that time, you can work on campus as, in a cafeteria. You can have teaching assistantship. Those are different from GRA, but you can still earn hourly. And teaching assistantships are good because you maintain a relationship with the professor, and then you can get future jobs as well. So I think adding to Shaunatra's comment, just keep networking. And it's not like you have to work only within urban design. You can work within architecture, planning, industrial design, anything that comes into design, or even outside that. Just do your research on that.
Yeah. I would also say, that a lot of the research opportunities are, faculty a research grant might suddenly come through in the middle of the semester, and suddenly, yet the opportunity. So we don't always know about it right at the beginning of the year. And there's also at Georgia Tech, the Georgia Tech Research Institute is as big as Georgia Tech, pretty much. And they often do need, they're happy to sometimes hire students, but they're not part of the education network. They are just pure full-time research scientists. So there are opportunities, and it can get, it's not easy, but it's you've got to help.
Yeah.
You got to look around.
Another opportunity is the nonprofit organizations, advocacy organizations whose funding goes up and down and up and down, but they are particularly like urban design students because we're broader than architects, know more, imagine more, but we're also able to visualize and understand the world. So various places like the Auburn Avenue Development Corporation hired a student part-time for maybe 2 months, 3 months when they have projects to do. Some have worked for the Beltline for short periods of time. So nonprofits are particularly good. It's not like you get 2 years of jobs, but for short term, it's very effective and really educational to work with people who are advocates for the stuff that we advocate.
Yeah.
I thought there
So
was one thing as we were talking about urban design, a student came in a couple of weeks ago and she was interested in applying for an MSUD and said, why should I become an urban designer? Well, that's a pretty good question. What does it do for you to spend the time studying urban design? And the first thing I said was, makes you a better architect because you see the world in a different way and you see the relationships among what you're doing and other things that exist, not just the immediate context, but the larger issue of building a building in a city. There's also then the career options. I always tell people, and you can't see my arms spread out, but career options go from architecture like this to urban design that's like this. It could be in nonprofits, could be in landscape firms, could be in engineering firms, could be for real estate developers. I mean, it's an endless set of possibilities that once you begin, it's easy enough to shift to those other options. You can work as an architect for a couple of years to get licensed and then simply shift into something else, maybe your own consulting firm, maybe going to work for a landscape architect. So it allows you to shift where I'm an architect, so I'm sometimes mean to architects for being so narrow. But if you're an architect, only an architect, and that's your life and your passion, you're in it, and you stay in it. And it's difficult to change professions. In urban design, it's easy to change professions, which makes it then in an unpredictable future that we all are part of. It makes your ability to maneuver in that unknown future way better than someone who's trained, educated in a very narrow way. So that's my pitch. And anybody would be foolish not to be an urban designer.
Anybody? So any questions about that? Anybody want to dive deeper, or are you guys all, you do want to do urban design, or do you have some questions? Anyone want to raise their hand? Alejandro, looks like you got, go for it.
I do have one question because I want to hop over to ask a different question to Emmark, but what are urban design studios like?
So I'll start, and then Richard can, or anyone else can jump in. So they are, in some respects, they are just like architecture studios in that they meet for 12 hours a week. That's just the contact time with the faculty member. Every student gets their own desk, gets a monitor on their desk. So the hours, all of that is very similar. What is different is we are always working with a real community in a real place with some real stakeholders, and we meet with them. We are always working at a larger scale. So it might be 30 acres, it might be Ivanthia, you said you guys have grown your site. You're like up to over 150 or something. I don't. They volunteered to take on even more land. So you're working at a much bigger site, and you aren't designing the buildings, but you are subdividing land. You are organizing the streets. You are designing the public spaces, the public networks. And you are illustrating where you would like to see what you think the building footprints, the building types, and the building massing. You illustrate how it could be built out, but we control the public space, the networks, the infrastructure, and in response to the needs of the community. And then we illustrate the buildings, but we aren't designing buildings. And the first semester focuses that much more on hydrology, on water, on understanding the natural systems. And Richard and other colleagues have been teaching that semester. And then the spring, I've been teaching more of a focus on the man-made systems impact on urban form. So real estate dynamics and transportation. So they're and we do a lot more teamwork, a lot of teaming in the urban design. And I think that's also why we have more fun.
Yep. But I think there's something else. Not instead of talking about the projects, which is that what we do in the studio, we can shift to another way to think about an urban design studio, which is to focus not on a program and a site and perhaps a client, but to focus on conceptual ideas that are strategic. And the difference in design thinking is the difference between designing something and setting out a design strategy that can be communicated very clearly. And I'm known for saying when you communicate, it's 1, 2, 3. You're very precise in what you're proposing. Then what backs that up is what I call the organizing territory, which are lots and blocks and streets or whatever else composes the public territory of the city, which architecture traditionally just doesn't touch because the focus is on the building, necessarily on the building itself. We focus more on the public domain, and that has to do with streets and spaces and all the other stuff. So strategic urban design has to be strategic because the time dimensions that we're dealing with is longer. It's not a question of designing a building, doing the construction docs, getting the construction process under the way and finishing the building and go on to the next one. Urban design projects in offices, and as we think about it in school, may be of unknown length. It might be several years, it might be much longer than that. What we're doing excuse me, is setting up a framework that allows those changes to happen over time within a framework. If you think about it in the big scale, you say, okay, New York City, Commissioner's Plan of 1811 laid out all the grid of blocks, goes on forever. That hasn't changed. What has changed is the everyday changes of architecture and what happens within that public domain. Same thing in Savannah, even better, a very complex city plan, 1733, and it's still the same in this small historic district. So thinking in terms of time and strategic moves is why, as Ellen said, it's why we have more fun. because we're inventing stuff rather than complying with all the demands of a building.
I would also, one more comment on that if just the difference between being an architect or being an urban designer. And this is an oversimplification, but in general, an architect really only has to convince one client, one person, to spend lots of money on the architect's kind of vision for that project. The urban designer has to convince, if not a city council, at least an entire community.
Yeah.
And it means that it's much less about my idea, my project. You are putting forward your ideas and what you think are the best strategies, but you absolutely have to think about them in terms of the larger community.
Yeah.
In a
Yeah,
big
a colleague of mine once described urban design as dealing with hydra-headed clients. You know, the hydra, with snakes. That's exactly. You never know when one of them's going to bite you. So you learn to maneuver yourself through multiple clients that sometimes you don't even know who they are until they strike at you, right?
So Subhash, you've been working just for a couple of months now, not very long yet, but as an urban designer since graduating, how have you found practicing urban design different from when you were practicing architecture?
I think in offices it's more task oriented, like the work that we do. And it's more about researching and getting stuff together so that the higher officials, they can get an idea as to like what kind of work can be done. Because right out of college, we won't be given like a managerial or like complete design roles, but it will be mostly about supporting the design team or the research team. So far, the work that I've been doing for the past 2-3 months, it's about like getting data from GIS and putting together analysis for sites and what kind of opportunities can arise with these analysis. Because the firm that I'm working is not entirely a design firm. It's more mostly in relation to getting the projects, and it's more about the construction and the distribution of the project aspect. So in that case, your role also kind of slightly differs from what you've done in college. But it's also interesting to learn that how you can apply those skills even in a different setup, how you can maximize your skill in a way that will actually like help in a different setup. So although slightly different, but it's still been an interesting area to explore.
Absolutely. Aishwarya, tell us a little about what you've been working on, and how has the MSUD shaped that?
So, like Ellen said, I'm working mostly as an architectural designer, but then being an urban designer already sets me apart from literally everyone, because there are 85 people who have architecture degree, and it's just me who has an urban design master's degree. So I literally, so now the firm is trying to enter a new commercial market, and literally no one has the knowledge that I have. I don't want to boast about it, but architects really don't understand the level urban designers think. And I have already been included with the senior management team to work on these analysis and the projects that the new they are trying to enter a new market. So I think it already sets you apart, because you have a different perspective, and you know how to because during urban design, what we learned is the art of storytelling. It's about how you explain the idea to the people, and I think that's what we learn a lot during this process. And I think it sets you apart from everyone. Even if you work as an architect, if you work as a planner, if you work as anything, a real estate person, I think urban design already gives you that leg up. It doesn't matter if you work as an urban designer or as an architect, you will always shine through, because you have this knowledge and you have this experience with you.
Oh, that warms my heart, Aishwarya. Thank you. It's great to hear that. Now, I know I'm hoping all of you, of course, are going to come to Georgia Tech. and you're going to have to find housing. And that can be a daunting task to do from a distance. So I thought I'd just start by saying, I mean, Elin, you've been here you've been here as a student, I mean, as an MSUD student, then as a PhD student. And tell us a little about what your advice. Just let's go through everybody. Quick advice on finding housing.
Okay,
What should you look at, think about?
This might sound like an advertisement, but read Google View. I certainly benefit from that a lot. So I think start looking at it. I think you may want to start looking at houses near the campus. So basically our campus, there are two big part of it. So to the west is the West Midtown and to the east is Midtown. So I think a majority of students that I see coming to tech usually land on those two areas, so West Midtown and Midtown, and there are tons of apartments there. So so I really suggest starting from there and just searching on Google Maps and read the reviews. And there are different types of apartments. So they're more like student apartments and more like commercial. So yeah, read the Google View. So Google Map is your best friend.
Also,
All right.
Also, 1 year I stayed in an apartment, but sometimes, because if you're international students, some apartments may or may not. It depends from management to management, but there are a couple of websites like Zillow and I think Zapper, I'm not sure. So you can actually rent a house. You can directly talk to the landowner. And that's what I did for 1 year. I was living in a townhome with 2 roommates. And I think that was a better experience because you're dealing directly with the landowner. So even that is an option. So don't just limit yourself. You can definitely find so many people giving out their houses for rent. And if you're a student, they're more than happy to give you because they already know that you go to Georgia Tech. So that won't be a problem.
How about the cost of a commercial apartment versus renting a townhouse? And having roommates obviously will help keep costs down, but was it a big difference in price?
I think in apartments, you have a lot of hidden costs, like you have a lot of deposits. I felt living in a townhome and an apartment was more or less the same. It increased by, let's say, a 10%, but I think the mental peace that you get, because if I have any issues, like let's say my plumbing wasn't working for a month, my landlady, she literally took care of it and we didn't have to pay anything because she knew it was not our problem or anything. So the cost was more or less the same. If you have roommates, it's really good. You can still have your individual room and still end up paying the same. So look for both the options. I know people who've enjoyed both of them. I've personally enjoyed living in an individual house, but that is a possibility, and you should explore it.
Yeah,
Right.
I lived in a house myself one time, and I've lived in 2 apartments, and the house was more expensive than one of the apartments, but less expensive than the other. So it's really a mixed bag of what the cost can be.
Yeah, and I would say also look for houses in Home Park. It's an area that is really close to campus and it's like a nice little suburban area. There you can, even though if you don't find roommates, there are houses where there'll be like 3 or 4 people living in the house and the property management will just give out one room to you and it's inclusive of all the utilities and everything. At least that was in my case. And I would also suggest to join Facebook groups of Georgia Tech housing where people will be posting a lease transfer or a sublease if you're like not finding anything. And there'll also be like a lot of people who are giving away their furniture on these groups. So it'll be helpful for you like when you like set up your new home.
Yeah, I think the Georgia Tech Facebook groups, they were very helpful for
Yeah.
all this because just join, if you have a WhatsApp group, you will find a lot of links. So finding housing will never be an issue because someone or the other, they are always subleasing, subletting.
Yeah.
It was never an issue for anyone, I know.
Yeah, and start very early.
Ivanthia, how about you?
Yes, I also suggest to find housing around campus because Georgia Tech also has some buses that serve that area, and you have your transportation covered. Also, that area is covered by walking in for 25-minute walk max to the campus. So it's very convenient. The buses are frequent and they are efficient. so you have transportation covered. Even in the weekends, there are some. There is a route that takes you to the grocery store, and because the Georgia Tech campus is in Midtown, and if you find the housing in Midtown, either in Midtown or West Midtown or at the north, there is a variation of amenities and facilities and services. There are grocery stores in a walking distance. So it's very convenient, and you are not, you don't have to have a car. It's not a car, you are not dependent on a car if you stay around campus. And also campus has many amenities. It has an amazing library. Many students spend hours there to study and do assignments, with quiet rooms, huge co-working spaces or private rooms. There is also a cafeteria at the ground floor, and the library remains open 24/7, which is very important. There is also a student center in the campus with even a bowling game, and I think there are free games on Monday as well. There are dining halls and a recreation center with a huge gym and pools. So yeah, if you stay around campus, then you have everything there, and it's very convenient.
I'll also throw in my own preferred mode of transportation. I mean, City of Atlanta is absolutely known for really terrible traffic. Name a good, there's no good city that doesn't have bad traffic. You really do not want to have to drive. And excuse me, parking on campus is not very convenient, and it's very expensive. So we really, excuse me, I gave up my car 9 years ago. I bike to campus. I bike 4 miles in each direction, which does allow that. I totally recommend trying to live really close to campus. But honestly, Atlanta is becoming more and more bike friendly. And if I can bike 4 miles, I'm sure most of you could easily do it as well. That takes me about 20 to 25 minutes, depending on how many lights I hit. So I really do recommend biking. There are some of the students have bought electric scooters. There's certainly a lot of scooters you can rent, but a lot of folks also want to buy those. But so the further away you get from campus, in some directions, you're going to hit more expensive neighborhoods, and in other directions, you'll hit some less expensive neighborhoods. Is anybody, I think right now, I know we've always had a few of the MSUDs living in the graduate student housing, and I know that they tend to feel like those are very nice facilities, but it's not the cheapest by any stretch. So safety is another one of the issues that everyone rightfully, should be concerned about. Atlanta crime is down. I mean, every now and then there will be crime can find anyone anywhere. I really recommend, I think part of the advantage of having roommates, especially roommates who are taking some of the same classes that you are, and there are some classes that meet at night. So, being able to walk home together is really an advantage. So, I'm not allowed to share your email addresses with each other unless you let me. So send me a note, an email if you would like to be, allow me to share your email so that you guys can really connect with each other and find some roommates who will be taking some of the same evening classes and would like to be able to walk home together. Or, honestly, also, I ride my bike at night after my night classes. And I feel pretty darn safe. I feel actually safer riding at night as long as I'm lit up like a Christmas tree. So I have a lot of lights on my bike. Any other question? What other questions? Alejandro has another. Oh, well, Artie has a question. I'll get back to Alejandro, but Artie asks, are there shuttles from campus? And yes, there are, but there's a limit. So the Stingeret is a shuttle bus that runs, who knows the hours or the routes, but it doesn't go that far from campus, but it certainly covers the immediate areas. You could look up online and see the route of the Stingeret.
I think the Stingeret is 24 hours, especially it covers the time when the shuttle bus is not in operation. So I think it's from maybe 7 to 8 p.m. till the morning of the next day.
Right, yeah.
And it's
because
on
then
demand.
There's also
so you have
regular full-size buses that are shuttling around campus, and there's some that go all the way over to the Emory campus, not all that frequently. There's some that will go directly to the MARTA station on 10th Street, 8th and 9th really. But so there is public transportation as well. And Nitra's put in a link to the Stingeret.
With regard to safety, because I used to be a student as well, people who haven't been in Atlanta might like to know that the 5th Street Bridge is actually part of Georgia Tech campus. So I had a rule: if it's nighttime, don't cross North Avenue Bridge. It was a bad experience for me every time I did it, but 5th Street Bridge, which is the next bridge up, is controlled by Georgia Tech, and that's it's even really pleasant to walk at night. So I would always use that one.
Yeah. Now, thank you, Alejandro. I think, that they're definitely, we're a city. And so, yes, crime does happen. And there are muggings every now and then. Even, we have to worry sometimes. During football games, we get drunken fans coming into using the building and using the bathrooms. And sometimes they can be disrespectful to architectural models. I mean, otherwise good people becoming insane. So we're in a city and we value that public space and that public activity, but you do have to, like in any city, you sort of learn those routes where you feel safer.
And campus is definitely safe to walk during nights, and because you can see police in a lot of spaces, and there are also some red buttons in the case of extreme emergency that you can immediately press, and you get the police at where you are. So I've never felt any fear by walking in the campus during night hours. And yes, after studio, when we leave very late and after 9 p.m., there is the Stingeret van that you can book with your phone at a specific point it's like taxi or Uber, but it only covers the periphery of the campus. So if you live nearby, it can get you at a point to then walk like a bit for your house. So yes, transportation is very efficient, and safety is also okay if you are careful, of course. In campus, I think it's okay.
The police are there to help you, not to get you. Like there was an incident of underage drinking in my experience that I saw. The police just pulled over, asked, "Are you okay?" They said, "I am okay." Georgia Tech police, "I am okay. I can get to my dorm." They leave you alone. They're not there to get you. They're there to serve you and to keep you safe, and they respond really quickly. So the GTPD has been a friend in my experience.
That is always absolutely helpful to know. All right, we've got a few more questions, and I apologize. We'll just keep going. I will stay here. If anyone has to leave, we're over time. I understand, and I'm sorry about my internet going out, about the confusion and time about the different multiple open houses and the links. But I'm happy to stay and invite any of you to stay, and we'll just answer a few more of the questions that have come in online. So one is about career expos and career fairs and what campus recruitment looks like. Nitra, do you have the numbers of how many people attended our last, how many employers attended our career fair in February?
I don't, because that is now under the jurisdiction of the Career Center. It has become a huge event, and so they've taken it over because they have the resources to do so adequately. But I will share the link to our most previous career fair, and also the link to the Career Center, as well as the direct link to Davia Woolard, who is the College of Design career educator.
Yeah. I mean, we certainly get, so the college will have one for architecture, planning, and urban design. And then the institute, Georgia Tech, has a big career fair. And sometimes we get firms. We had actually a really terrific urban design firm from Los Angeles went to the Georgia Tech one because they didn't know we had our own. They weren't local. They did, so we get a mix of local and national firms at the career fairs. I also help just, as students are graduating, kind of sending little updates anytime I get some of the urban design firms contacting me and saying, hey, we're hiring. You got any new grads? And so I also help pass along tips for folks. We also do a portfolio review and really try with local urban design professionals to just help you make sure that your portfolio is really communicating what an employer is going to be looking for. And so Aishwarya, you're going to go. And so wonderful to see you. Thanks so much.
Bye, everyone.
For joining.
Have a great rest of the day. Bye-bye.
Yep.
Bye. And let's see, Avanthia says we had about 55 or 60 firms at the career fair. It's always pretty crowded, no question. And Alejandro, you had a question about exploring augmented reality and urban design, which is a terrific question. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's still some AR research going on, but the Spatial Futures Lab that Keith Caseman had set up, Keith is no longer at Georgia Tech. I honestly don't know what's happening with the Spatial Futures Lab, but certainly Tech has the equipment and just needs someone to pick that up, and maybe that's you. Who sort of brings that back to it may still be going. I just don't know, honestly, since Keith left recently. Any other questions? Any other comments from current or recent alums? What did we not talk about? What do you remember when you were replying that was a question? We haven't talked much about it. The city of Atlanta, what it's like to be here. K-Bar, tell us what you feel, what's your experience of the city of Atlanta?
Well, I've lived in the Southeast for a pretty long time. I'm from Alabama, so I used to come to Atlanta all the time as a kid, and into my high school years. So I already knew a lot about the city, and I really like Atlanta because it's kind of like a big city in a smaller context. I feel it's easy to see a lot of natural stuff if you want to, so you can go out if you know, have the feasibility, you know, rent a car or something to like Stone Mountain, or even like we take trips to Savannah, and Savannah is a really pretty historical city, just right here in Georgia. For the city of Atlanta, there's a bunch of like cool projects that are going on, like the Beltline, which is going around and connecting the entire city. Honestly, one of the probably biggest urban development projects in the nation. So it's a really cool context, I guess, to study urban design in, but seeing how all that is going on around you. And yeah, just a bunch of fun stuff to do. I mean, there's Pond City Market, there's the Old Fourth Ward, there's just a whole bunch of really cool, you know, there's Inman Park, there's a bunch of cool neighborhoods that have interesting stuff going on. I mean, not even to mention Midtown, which is another one that has cool stuff going on all the time, and that's just right next to Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech is kind of West Midtown, and right next to it, where a lot of students live, is Midtown. A lot of times they have, or twice a year, they have like street closures where they shut down like West Peachtree Street from cars, so you can just kind of like walk through it, and that's really cool. Yeah, so I'm biased. I've lived here for a long time, but I really like Atlanta. So
I also just always, a couple things I treasure about Atlanta. I think the weather is great. I mean, I am worried about it getting hotter. We do have the reputation of Hotlanta, but it doesn't get hotter than the Northeast US. It just stays hot longer. And as a result, we have a lot more air conditioning and swimming pools. So the infrastructure works. I like the weather in Atlanta, and lots of sunny days. We have a really high proportion of sunny days compared to, you name any other urban design school. I think we're at the top there. But we don't really get hurricanes, or not much. We get the tail end of them, but you know, we don't have a lot of natural disasters. Also, I absolutely treasure the civil rights legacy of Atlanta. Atlanta is the home of Martin Luther King and the Ebenezer Baptist Church where he prayed. And while the city doesn't always live up to all of his preaching, we try that much harder than I think a lot of other places and parts of the U.S.
Yeah. There's one thing, two comments about Atlanta. One is Ellen mentioned the word Hotlanta. That didn't have anything to do with the temperature. It has to do with the action, right? The other is I have found Atlanta to be more open than most other cities in the U.S. Other places, if you're not in the right network, moving in the right circle with the right people, and busily networking like crazy, like Anitra said, you're out. You're just not part of something bigger. In Atlanta, no matter who you are or where you come from, there's a place for you, and you can walk in any place and operate and find opportunities, or it will find you. So that openness is something that I think for big cities in the U.S. is unusual. And it may be other cities in the Southeast and Southwest are similar, but not, I don't think any of them are as open as Atlanta is. So you can come to Atlanta and make your way. And I think that's true, especially for African Americans and other parts of the country, moving to Atlanta, moving back to Atlanta. And that by that happening, it's also further opening the city to other people. So there's a lot of opportunity in Atlanta to do stuff. You don't have to come here and study and then split to go someplace else.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree with that. I grew up in a college town. I've become an educator, so I've lived in a lot of college towns. And college towns, you have to have been there for at least 30 years before anybody wants to hear your ideas. Atlanta is so much of a boom town and has been growing, is constantly having newcomers come in And that is, I think, contributes a lot to its openness. It also means that I often say it's a great city to study urban design in, precisely because we have every problem you could possibly want to work on, but we also have examples of fantastic solutions. You know, it's a dynamic place. So we've got two more questions have come in. One is, could we share information on interdisciplinary research that the School of Architecture conducts with other departments in the College of Design? And I would say, you know, it's always all up to individual faculty. The HPB faculty do quite a bit of interdisciplinary work with sometimes, you know, the environmental sciences, the computation faculty work with College of Computing. Within architecture, within urban design, we often collaborate. I've been on grants working with, we have interdisciplinary research institutes at Georgia Tech on sustainable systems. In particular, I've worked on some grants with, combining engineers, computation, architect, you know, urban design, and a variety of things. So yes, there is quite a lot of interdisciplinary research. There's also a question on throwing light on how do we apply for the research assistantships. I would say very, very simply, you know, just send me an email letting me know, but also really it's contact faculty. There are a certain number of research assignment of the teaching assignments that are really given through the school, and then a graduate teaching assistantship, but then individual faculty, if they have research funding, it's up to them. Who do they want to hire? And so it's, you know, if you see a little news item that someone just received a big grant, email them and ask if they could use your skills. So it's those are the two ways. And okay, K-Bar has to go as well. And I will share your email. Thank you, K-Bar, with others that have any questions. So have I hit all of the questions? I see Elin put together, yes, that Perry Yang, who is also allied with the urban design, has a joint, mostly he's in city planning, but he also has a joint appointment in architecture. And he offers courses on looking at urban digital twins, and he gets students from a variety of majors. And in fact, this summer, he is offering a studio that will include 2 weeks optional. Students have to pay for their own flight. They'll get free housing, but in Tokyo. So there's lots of things that, you know, come and go with different research opportunities. I'm really glad to see so many of you here. And again, apologize for the missing the incorrect information about the link. To those of you who are really looking for the MS ARC or the MS or the MARC open house meeting, I'm sure those were that was recorded as well. So all right. Any last questions? Final comments?
I do have one.
Okay.
I do have one, which was for any people who are supposed to be an MR, let's say, but there was options to take urban design studios. How would that look like?
So we love to offer the MArcs who are interested in urban design, but they're pursuing an MArc. If there's space in the MSUD studio, we are happy to welcome them in. It's really just a question of there being space availability. Alejandro, in your case, we would, we've already said we would welcome you to come in, but we want you to first take some of those MARC studios. So the last year of the MARC, those studios are called Design and Research, and the MSUD studio will get double listed as both the MSUD Urban Design Studio and a Design and Research MARC studio. That's how that works. We can talk in more detail later, but and oh great, Natiksha is setting up a WhatsApp group. That's fabulous. Thank you so much.
Hi, just trying to share some resources and get in touch with everyone. So if you all are open to it, you could join in and maybe we could chat more over there and share our contacts and resources. So yeah, and thank you for hosting this event as well. It was really helpful and I especially got many insights, as I'm sure most of us did. So thank you so much, Professor, for hosting this event.
I am copying down the link. Yeah, no, and just feel free to email me, any of us, really. We're all happy to help answer your questions. And I hope that you think Georgia Tech is the right fit for you. The one closing comment I would say on that question, there are sometimes students who want to do a completely visionary urban design. I want to design a city of the future that's not in a real place, that doesn't have any existing constraints. I just want to work, complete my imagination. And I would say that's not what we focus on. You could do that for an independent study, but it's certainly not what you're going to find in our studios. And whereas there are some other schools that do, I think, work in that more, completely, I would say, visionary, but not constrained by any of the realities and pragmatics. We try to really be both. Absolutely, we want to see innovative ideas. We're at Georgia Tech. We're all about innovation, but we're also interested in really the practicalities and making sure that you at least understand what it would take to really implement those great ideas. So and in fact, Georgia Tech has a whole summer program to help students have their own startups. And it's also very much about how do we really implement these ideas. So good afternoon. I will join Elin in telling everybody, depending on where you are, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. Thanks you so much for joining.
Thank you, Ellen.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.